Hello YouTube, Ronan Kazzy. Hey, I added something other than an Arch-based distro to my test machine. We're going to try Mint today. Why did it finish at the bottom? Well, what I've been doing with all these games, I've been doing real-world benchmarking. You could run the benchmark tool in Cyberpunk 2077. When I did that, everything came out almost exactly the same. When I ran the game in real life, there was like a 10% difference between the Arch distros. Just a quick spoiler alert, it's like 10 frames per second. So it's maybe 20% difference between Cachy and Mint. Why did I pick Mint? So I was looking for a Linux distro that will easily install NVIDIA proprietary drivers. It does it. Fedora does it, but I tried to reinstall Ultramarine and did the same thing before. For whatever reason, it writes like a 500 megabyte file inside my boot EFI partition, which is only 2 gigabytes. And Fedora, just for whatever reason, won't play nice. I've always had a problem with Fedora. Nothing against Fedora. I'm sure it works great in virtual machines. But that's the difference between using things on a virtual machine and installing them for real. Mint installed great. It's easy for beginners, but you have a long-term support Linux distro, which isn't optimized, right? And so would I do any long-term support? I really don't believe in that. You're getting a worse situation than you had in Windows, right? You aren't getting the freshest software and whatever. So why would someone pick Mint? It kind of looks like Windows because the things in the lower left, the button you hit, but you can make KDE do that. I think you could make GNOME do that. If you can't make GNOME, then one more reason to use KDE. So you can use KDE for that. I also installed KDE Linux on my system. That went in with no problem. But that's Ubuntu-based. So I have 2 Ubuntu-based distros. And there's a picture of Linux Mint, the desktop with Cinnamon as a desktop environment. So if you take out that everyone recommends Linux Mint that doesn't use Linux, that is on Windows, say, hey, this looks like Windows, I think, right? If you take out all those people, there's really not a compelling reason to install Linux Mint, right? Is it a better Ubuntu than Ubuntu? I don't know. They had that recent kerfuffle with GNOME calendar thing, and that's nothing to get rid of them for, but I will say this about Linux Mint. It still ran Cyberpunk 2077 on my hardware, no problem. Now, one thing I did notice, I've run that benchmark on 5 or 6 different distributions. You've seen at least 5 of them, and some of them I've done a number of times. And never once have my fans turned on. Like I was just sitting here doodling, I heard this fan noise. I've turned off my fans because I'm getting ready to record, and my laptop is on fire. Let me feel it right now. It's on fire still. It's not on fire still. But I don't know if the drivers are, I don't know. But, right, Linux Mint isn't made for gaming like Garuda is, like CachyOS is. Maybe like Nobara, if I could have got Nobara ever to install correctly. So there's things in life, and especially Linux distros, right? I installed Arch because it was a challenge and because it's kind of like can I even do it? And it's dumb, simple, easy. In my setup, it's not dumb, simple, easy. You have to know a little bit more than the average bear. And for sure, doing this experiment, I understand bootloaders and disk partitions in Linux way better than I did before. And I can see when I'm going to have a problem. Here's a difference between Fedora and Debian. Debian kind of automatically knows. Doesn't ask me a lot. A lot of the installers don't ask me, hey, where's your EFI? It figures that out, and it doesn't blow up my EFI. Fedora-based ones, for whatever reason, they got to know where my EFI is when I say, there's my EFI, don't format it. I have problems. And I read somewhere doing something, you could have a second 2 gigabyte partition and have that be your fake. That's what I say, YouTube. That's what I say. So Linux is a lot of, because it's kind of like Windows. I tried to install this Arch-based thing called PowerOS, which is supposed to be based on Macintosh. And when I went to the website, it was highly one of those sites back in the old days when you're trying to download stuff. There's ads everywhere and everything. I finally downloaded it and burnt it. It just died on boot. So, like, I wouldn't even recommend even trying that. And then there's another one. I forget what it's called, but it looks like Windows 11 a lot. And honestly, because you're familiar, who am I talking to on this channel? You're new to Linux. You maybe you game, you just want to play your dumb games, or you just want to do your spreadsheets, or whatever you want to do. Linux can do that all day, every day. Then when you come into this space, and it took me a while to get the nomenclature, but there's the kernel. Then there's something that runs your Windows, your window manager, and then you have a desktop environment. And the desktop environment's like what you see in Linux. It's KDE, GNOME, and in Mint's case, it's a thing called Cinnamon. The first thing you should do if you're switching over to Linux is figure out what interface you want to live with. Are you a person who likes to tinkle, that you like to tinker? I don't know if you like to tinkle. That's weird. Sorry, YouTube. If you like to tinker, then you might like KDE because you can do a bunch of stuff. I like KDE because I can make it look exactly. I like having my menu bar down at the bottom. I like that about the Mac. The thing I don't like about the Mac is it puts the commands up at the top. That's the number one thing you need to do. Then the next thing you need to do is how complicated do you want your installation and your upkeep and your how secure, how much patched your system is. I like CachyOS because from the beginning, I hit one button and it updated my system every time without fail, everything. I don't install Flatpaks. And what I see in these other distros, I'll have a software manager program, and it will do your kernel, and it will do your Flatpaks. But I would argue you should get away from Flatpaks because that's what you were over in Windows, right? Now, there's also a contingent of Linux, and I want you to think about this. If you're a Windows user, congratulations. You're like 80% of the market. 60% you're 40% of the market, Android's 50%, Linux is 2% of the market. It's a very small percentage of the market. So the people in there, sorry, YouTube people, the people in there go from, I'm a zealot, and this matters, and it's great that it does this, to I dip my toe in it, and I'm not really giving you the fair shake. I'm just doing this for clicks. So it's a hard community to get into because there's a barrier between nomenclature and, people push out different things. I'm just going to tell you, CachyOS, Arch-based distros are the best because they stay up to date, the most easy, and most of those are easy to install. So this is Ronan Kazzy. Bye, YouTube. Go Linux Mint.